Imagine for a moment a world without money. No coins pressed into palms. No paper changing hands. No numbers glowing on screens, silently measuring worth. For thousands of years, money has been so deeply woven into human life that its absence feels almost unimaginable. It dictates where we live, what we eat, how long we study, and often how long we survive. It shapes ambition, fear, power, and hope. And yet, money itself is not food, not shelter, not warmth. It is an agreement, a story we all decided to believe. So what happens when that story ends? In a world without money, the first thing to disappear would not be wealth, but certainty. The quiet assurance that value can be calculated, compared, and stored. Without currency, society would be forced to confront a question it has long avoided. How do we decide what something is worth? At first, life might appear simpler. No prices, no salaries, no debts accumulating in silence. But simplicity does not mean ease. Every object around us exists because countless people contributed time, effort, and skill. Money is the invisible system that coordinates those efforts across distance and time. Remove it, and coordination begins to fracture. In its place, something older returns: exchange, barter, obligation, reciprocity. In small communities, this works. In a global civilization of billions, it strains under its own weight. Exchange demands coincidence. What you have must be wanted by someone who has what you need. When coincidence fails, so does the system. Imagine a hospital in this world. The lights are on. Machines hum softly. A surgeon stands ready. But why is anyone here? What motivates years of training, endless responsibility, and irreversible decisions? Perhaps duty, perhaps compassion, perhaps social expectation. But compassion cannot build supply chains. Duty cannot manufacture medicine. Expectation without structure erodes. Work would no longer be paid. It would be assigned, distributed by ability, necessity, or collective agreement. The question would shift from how much does this pay to who will do this and why. For a time, idealism carries society forward. People speak of fairness, of shared responsibility, of contribution according to ability and support according to need. These ideas have appeared many times in human history, often born from hope, often tested by reality. Because needs are not equal, abilities are not evenly distributed, and some work is dangerous, exhausting, or deeply unpleasant. Without money, how does a society persuade someone to do what others will not? Obligation, rotation, status. In the absence of currency, reputation becomes value. Respect replaces income. Recognition replaces wealth. To be seen as useful becomes a form of survival. But reputation is fragile. It can be manipulated. It can be inherited. It can be erased. And so inequality returns quietly, not in numbers, but an influence. Those who control land, water, knowledge, or technology gain power, not because they are rich, but because others depend on them. Control becomes the new wealth. Systems emerge to manage this reality. Records of contribution, councils of distribution, algorithms deciding who receives what and when. A world without money is not a world without accounting. It is a world that counts different things: hours instead of currency, favors instead of savings, permissions instead of prices. And with counting comes conflict. Who decides what is enough? Whose needs matter most? Who waits? Scarcity never disappears. It only changes shape. And where there is scarcity, there is competition. Not for profit, but for access. Yet something else changes. Without money, consumption slows. Objects are repaired instead of replaced. Value shifts from ownership to usefulness, from accumulation to longevity. A chair is no longer cheap or expensive, only well made or poorly made. Time begins to feel different. Without wages dividing hours into units of profit, life follows a more natural rhythm. Work and rest respond to daylight, seasons, and human limits rather than clocks and contracts. But freedom comes with uncertainty. Without savings, how does one prepare for illness, old age, or loss? Perhaps the community provides. Perhaps it does not. History suggests that when survival depends on collective responsibility, societies become either deeply cooperative or deeply controlled. Rules appear, enforcement follows, power concentrates. The absence of money does not remove hierarchy. It transforms it. Money was memory. It remembered past work and allowed effort today to become security tomorrow. Without it, society must invent new ways to remember. And remembering has always been political. Without money, time itself grows heavier. Not because it moves differently, but because nothing accelerates it. No deadlines tied to pay. No urgency created by profit. Silence returns, and silence exposes. Entire industries vanish, not in collapse, but in irrelevance. Persuasion, speculation, artificial demand. There is no reason to convince someone to want what they do not need. But desire does not disappear. Without prices, desire becomes unmeasured. People still want comfort, attention, security, meaning. But now, wanting requires confrontation. To ask instead of buy. To explain instead of consume. To justify need. Every exchange becomes personal. Money allowed distance. Distance from labor, from consequence, from responsibility. Without it, taking requires seeing. Imagine asking for a home, not paying, not owning, but explaining. Standing before a system and telling your story. Why you deserve shelter. Why your need should matter. In such a world, dignity is fragile. Those who speak well gain more. Those unseen receive less. This is not cruelty by design, but inequality by nature. Stories become currency, whose pain is believable, whose contribution is visible. Trust becomes essential, and once broken, it spreads doubt. Are others giving enough? Am I giving too much? Is this fair? Surveillance emerges quietly. Records, evaluations, assessments of effort, because shared resources demand accountability. Rest becomes suspicious. Leisure must be justified. Why are you not contributing? Why are you allowed to stop? And so a world without money may become more controlling, not less. Freedom becomes conditional, not on wealth, but on usefulness. Those who cannot contribute test the system. The sick, the elderly, the vulnerable. Without money to hide the question, care becomes visible. And visibility demands choice. Do we support those who cannot give back? For how long? At what cost? These are not economic questions. They are ethical ones. And ethics do not scale easily. Generations pass. Memory fades. Those who remember money grow old. The young inherit a world where value was never priced. But new exchanges emerge. Favors accumulated. Access negotiated. Privileges traded. Not money by name, but money by function. Because humans always create tokens of trust. Something that says, I have done my part. I am owed. If not coins, then promises. If not paper, then data. If not accounts, then reputation stored and scored. And slowly, abstraction returns, until one day someone suggests a symbol, a unit, a way to simplify, not from greed, but from exhaustion. And in that moment, money is reborn, not as villain, not as savior, but as a tool, imperfect, powerful, human. So perhaps the question is not, what if money did not exist? Perhaps the real question is what part of us required it, and what it says about us that we cannot seem to live without it.